the most important thing for us is that our plan in response to the pandemic, our plan for how we come out of the pandemic needs to be the plan that works best for Saskatchewan people. And one of the ways we do that is through legislative accountability. This plan raises lots of questions. Those are questions that Scott Moe needs to answer. And that's why we're repeating our call today and insisting that it is time for us to get back to some form of legislative accountability. We're absolutely happy to work with the Premier and with his team to come up with a way that continues to respect physical distancing, but it is time, as we're having such major decisions being made, for accountability in the province. We have an outbreak in La Loche going on right now, and we know that local outbreaks don't stay local. At the same time, we have a document that's a plan for the next months that has a whole chapter on golf courses and doesn't mention First Nations and Métis communities, doesn't mention the North at all. We have a document that has its strength. There are, for example, good guidelines and protocols for how businesses that are open or are about to open can help protect their workers and help protect the public. This is something we've been asking for and we're happy to see. But there are a number of questions, and I'll just go through a couple of those. One is the question of kids. We know if we're asking people to go back to work and their kids are home from school or their childcare situation doesn't have the capacity to accommodate their kids as they're having different rules with physical distancing, that's going to be a big challenge. What is the plan to make sure that nobody's in a situation where they're unable to go to work for childcare reasons, or where they might lose their job or face other penalties because they have to say no, they have to stay home with their kids? We know that businesses are going to need extra support during this time. The physical distancing measures, the increased protocols for cleaning, and changes in consumer patterns mean that folks will have much decreased revenues, and yet their costs are actually going to increase. How are we going to be supporting businesses through that time, especially with the weaknesses that we see in the small business program that was released a couple of weeks ago? We're also looking at the very important question of the readiness of our healthcare system. How ready are we if suddenly, as a result of reopening, we see a spike in cases? Do we have the ventilators we need? Do we have the personal protective equipment that people need in healthcare, as well as some of these businesses that are now going to be required to use it? And have we got the plan? And I think the answer we know is not yet. We still have not seen a plan for how testing will be expanded to different groups, to vulnerable groups, how the tracing and isolation will be done in a way that if we see outbreaks like the one we're seeing in La Loche happening, how are we going to be ready to react as well as we possibly can? And lastly, there's a big question that the Premier opened up even wider today when he went on CBC Morning Edition and talked about it being time already, not even May 4th, already for folks to start visiting friends and family. What are the clear guidelines there for how to do that? Who should you be visiting and not visiting? How do we protect seniors in that situation? So many questions open up, and so many real concerns and real worries as we start to see messages that give the impression that things aren't just going well here, but that it's done. And I think the very clear message that anyone I'm speaking to in healthcare, in public health, wants us to know is that this is going well here, but it's not over. It's not over, and if we start to act overconfident, if we start to act like it's over, we are setting ourselves up for a very bad outcome. That points to the questions that are raised by this plan. That points to the fact that there are problems with this plan, and that those problems deserve scrutiny, that those questions deserve answers. And that's why I'm asking the Premier to bring back the Legislature in a form that works for the current time, but bring back some form of accountability, because those questions need answers, and he needs to start providing them.